I'm meteorologist Peter Chan, and welcome to the Alaska Weather Show on this Wednesday, May 5th, 2021. We're going to get right into the river breakup situation. As we expect, we're in the midst of the season now, and as a result, this aerial shot was taken of the Kuskokwim River at Aniak, and this was taken yesterday, on May 4th, Tuesday. You can see all the broken up ice there in the river. We also have higher water levels due to the snow melt, so the potential exists for some ice jams to form, and that could result in some minor flooding. As a result, a flood advisory is in effect through Friday morning on the Kuskokwim River at Aniak. And as we go downstream from there, we have a flood watch that has been issued, especially from the Bethel area down to the mouth of the river to the delta. As all of that ice is working its way downstream, and with the elevated water levels, we have that potential for ice jams to form that could result in some minor flooding. At least that's what we think at this time. Other rivers continue to have the breakup occurring with open water developing. We still have a flood warning on the Susitna River north of Talkeetna in the vicinity of Gold Creek, and that will continue at least through Thursday morning unless it needs to be extended. And pretty typical type of breakup situation that we have. At least it's been steady, and with the temperatures during the day above freezing, but at night around or below freezing. That has at least made it easy, especially in the northern rivers. And as we expect coming up here, we are going to see just generally some scattered light precipitation possible on and off here over the next several days, nothing heavy. And temperatures are going to be moderating in the extended outlook, which I'll show you a little bit later on in this portion of the show. But just to reiterate, there is a flood watch that is in effect through Sunday morning for the Kuskokwim River, the lower Kuskokwim River, including Bethel down to the mouth of the river there at the delta. And for that potential, as all of that ice is working its way downstream from the Aniak area. So keep an eye on the river. If you're downstream from Aniak, you're going to be experiencing the potential for some minor flooding here coming up here as we go through the weekend. And as always, if you notice something, if you're on the ground or in the air, we appreciate your help by sending any type of spotter reports on the river, pictures or videos, and you may submit these to nws.ar.aprfc@noaa.gov. Or if there's something more pressing, if you notice some more serious flooding or a situation you haven't seen before, it's more unusual, call 1-800-847-1739, and you can speak to one of the River Forecast Center forecasters, because we use this information, they do in particularly, to make decisions about their forecast and whether or not to issue any sort of watches, advisories, or warnings. And looking at satellite imagery, well, we have a system, low pressure, that's lifting out of the Pacific toward the Gulf of Alaska, and that will be spreading more rain and showers into the southeast. Meanwhile, south central areas into the interior still have a scattering of some light showers today. And as we go to the north, high pressure remains anchored over the Arctic Ocean along and just north of the Arctic coast, and as a result, there are areas of fog there, along with some patchy light snow. Further to the south and west, you can see the bright enhanced cloud tops of the system that's lifting up into the eastern Aleutians and the tip of the southwest peninsula. And actually, there's a few low pressure systems that are going to get a little better organized and consolidate out there as we go through the day tomorrow. So again, we have a couple areas of low pressure just kind of spinning on up from the North Pacific in toward the Gulf. And then we have a few more back from the Bering Sea to the Pacific side of the Aleutians, and then high pressure, stronger high pressure that's located over the Arctic Ocean along the Arctic coast. And the pressure gradient is going to be tightening over the interior, especially through the middle and upper Yukon Valley as we head into tomorrow and Friday. So there again, you can see The clouds indicating that moisture is streaming northward from the North Pacific up along the southeast coast, and then that brighter area moving into the eastern Aleutians and into the southwest peninsula. So in today's weather, we have that low pressure this early evening that's lifting northward up into the Gulf of Alaska. Meanwhile, high pressure remains anchored there just off the Arctic coast, and then a few areas of low pressure are going to consolidate from the Bering Sea down into the North Pacific as they interact there across the eastern Aleutians. And that by morning, we'll see areas of rain pretty widespread there across the eastern Aleutians and the southwest tip of the southwest peninsula. Meanwhile, areas of rain will be pressing northward into the Gulf of Alaska and brushing there the southeast coast as we go through the day tomorrow. And once again, there could be some scattered light rain showers or mixed showers pop up, especially across the southern interior. As to the north, you can see that pressure gradient by the isobars tightening, so it'll be stronger easterly winds that could gust around 35 to near 40 miles an hour in some of the higher terrain, especially outside of Fairbanks. And then that low pressure that's just kind of lifted there into the eastern Aleutians with rain and fog wrapped around it. Friday's weather, we'll continue to see weak low pressure located there across the interior. Very weak ridge of high pressure just kind of nudged up in behind that up over Prince William Sound, with the other couple of low pressure systems extending from just the Pacific side of the southwest peninsula and the Aleutians. So what does that mean for temperatures? We're looking for lows tonight, upper 30s to lower 40s across the southeast. As we go back into south central areas, lows will in many places will be around or just above freezing, with the exception of some interior spots. And then as we go for Thursday afternoon, should recover back up in the lower to mid 50s, many areas including McGrath, Talkeetna, and Glen Allen. Meanwhile, in the southeast, mid 50s to even near 60 degrees. And for Friday morning, lows across the southeast will generally be in the lower 40s, whereas back toward further west, we are seeing coastal areas with lows mid-upper 30s from the Kenai down toward Kodiak Island, but interior areas, a few spots could dip below freezing, including 28 there at King Salmon and also 30 at McGrath, and then highs back up in the mid and upper 50s, 58 there at McGrath and Talkeetna and Glen Allen there for Friday afternoon, whereas the southeast will see temperatures in the lower 50s. Along the Arctic coast, temperatures there are going to be down near 10 above tonight, with some areas of fog and patchy light snow or flurries. Otherwise, temperatures in the Yukon Valley north side will be in the teens and 20s to near 30 on the south side of the Yukon River. Highs Thursday afternoon will get back up into the 50s along and south of the Yukon River and remain below freezing in the 20s along the Arctic coast. Lows again back down around 10 above along the Arctic coast, but then dipping down to near and a bit below freezing there along the Yukon River, with highs on Friday afternoon back up into the 50s, possibly near 60 at Fairbanks. There could be enough instability that over toward Eagle there could even be a rumble of thunder as those showers tend to redevelop. And then for Thursday morning, we are looking for lows along the Aleutian chain up into the southwest peninsula, generally in the upper 30s, but the interior, as we get up toward Bethel and McGrath, we are looking for lows that are going to be a little below freezing in the upper 20s or so. Highs, though, along the Kuskokwim and Yukon rivers will be in the low and mid 50s Thursday afternoon, whereas along the Aleutian chain, being in the vicinity of the water, highs will only be in the low to mid 40s. And then as we go through Friday morning, we are looking for lows again across some of the interior areas to dip a little below freezing, but otherwise out over the peninsulas and the Aleutians, we will see lows in the upper 30s to near 40 degrees, with high temperatures on Friday afternoon back up in the mid, even upper 50s there throughout the Kuskokwim and the Yukon River basins. And a quick check of our climate outlook. We are looking for temperatures to average above normal, especially in southwest Alaska for mid-May, from May 11th through the 15th. So we'll continue to see the melting occurring, and then precipitation may average a little above normal, once again mainly over the southwest. And one quick programming note I want to pass along. The station K2 on 360 TV, starting May 20th, the weather show will air at 6:30 instead of 7:30. So keep that in mind as we've made that little programming change. Otherwise, that does it for your statewide weather.
And now, Aviation weather around Alaska.
And now it's time for aviation weather, and for planning purposes, here's a look at your flying weather for Thursday into Friday. We'll have IFR conditions along the North Slope and Arctic coast. Even the high pressure will be situated out there over the Arctic Ocean north of the coastline, and then IFR conditions extending into the western interior across the Seward Peninsula down to the YK Delta, and then out over the Bering and covering most of the Aleutians and entering the tip of the Southwest Peninsula. As we go through Thursday afternoon, conditions across the interior of the state will improve a bit with just a few isolated areas of IFR conditions there along the North Slope. And then remaining out there, especially Norton Sound westward toward St. Lawrence Island and out over the Bering Sea, including the eastern central Aleutians and areas around the tip of the Southwest Peninsula. For Friday morning, look for IFR conditions there again, North Slope, Arctic coast, and areas then along the Seward Peninsula, YK Delta, and also dropping down along the Alaska Peninsula out into the Aleutian chain with a few isolated pockets, south central areas, and into the southeast. For Friday afternoon, look for IFR conditions to hold there across portions of the North Slope, the southeast, and then also along and just south of the Alaska Peninsula and out over much of the Bering Sea, including the central Aleutians. Past conditions for Thursday. AKwx should see IFR conditions at least improve to MVFR conditions with a little better conditions the farther south you travel. And then Adigan should also see IFR conditions become MVFR with better conditions the farther south you go. And Lake Clark and Merrill should see MVFR conditions. Marginal visual flight rules hold throughout the day on Thursday. And that'll be the case rounding on up as we head toward the Alaska Range, including rainy as well as windy. And Isabel passes, look for MVFR conditions to hold on Thursday. Metasta farther east, MVFR also anticipated. Tanita could see some IFR conditions in the morning, trying to improve to MVFR by afternoon. And right now it looks like Portage should be able to hold on to VFR conditions throughout the day on Thursday. And in the southeast, Chilkoot and White are expected to have MVFR conditions throughout the day again on Thursday. Freezing levels remain around or just over 2,000 feet across the Alaska interior. And as we go through the southeast, around 4,000 to 6,000 feet across the southeast as we go into the Panhandle, and then out extending through the eastern Aleutians, the tip of the Alaska Peninsula, we'll see some freezing levels around or a bit above 4,000 feet. And as far as icing potential, there is icing potential above 4,000 feet, especially on the south slope of the Brooks Range down toward the Yukon River. Generally above 5,000 feet south central areas, between 6,000 and 16,000 feet across the southeast. And then back through the Aleutian chain and the tip of the Alaska Peninsula, we're looking at icing potential above 4,000 feet. On the upper level winds for the jet stream level, 30,000 feet, elongated area of low pressure extends trough there out over the Gulf of Alaska, bringing southerly winds upwards of 70 to 80 knots across the southeast. South central areas, southern winds upwards to 60 knots coming in off of Prince William Sound. And then down toward Kodiak Island, northwest winds up 40 to 50 knots coming offshore there. And a stronger core of upper level winds remains out over the North Pacific, south of the Alaska Peninsula. And then back toward the western Aleutians, look for winds that are out of the northwest at 60 to 70 knots. And getting down to the 9,000 kind of mid level, we are looking for low pressure circulation off the southeast coast with winds from the south of 40 to 50 knots coming on shore there at the 9,000 foot level, and then back out. Over the eastern Aleutians, we have an area of low pressure. Ahead of it, winds from the south at about 30 to 35 knots, backside turning around to the northeast and north at about 35 knots, and then bringing it down to 3,000 feet, low level, low pressure circulation there off the southeast with winds along the coast upwards of 50 knots from the south. And then out over the eastern Bering, winds out of the southeast to east at 40 to 50 knots, turning around to the northeast to north on the backside across the central and western Aleutians. And a quick check of turbulence. We'll see turbulence surface to 3,000 feet across the central eastern Aleutians, 4,000 feet the Alaska Peninsula, and surface to 5,000 feet over the southeast.
On March 11, 2011, a 9.0 magnitude earthquake off the Pacific coast of Japan generated a tsunami. This series of ocean waves sped towards the island nation, with waves reaching 24 feet high. The result was devastation and utter destruction. Towns were engulfed by water and swept away. Farmland was flooded. Tens of thousands of lives were lost. The National Police Agency reported damages to hundreds of roads, bridges, and more than 100,000 buildings. The surging water flooded rivers and destroyed harbors. In some areas along the coast, tsunami waves reached 6 miles inland. Tsunamis not only cause severe damage when they first strike land, but also as the water recedes back to sea. Tsunamis can inflict this type of damage because of some unique features. As tsunami waves travel across ocean basins, they may be as little as a few centimeters high, but they extend down to the ocean floor. This is different than traditional waves, which are only surface features. Tsunamis can also travel hundreds of miles per hour in the open ocean. As these waves approach a coast, the shallowing ocean floor slows the waves down and pushes the water mass upwards. The quicker the ocean floor transitions from deep to shallow, the greater potential for a higher wave height. So, tsunamis that experience this sudden shift into shallow water can have the height and momentum to pack a serious punch. Unfortunately, Japan found itself in this scenario. This image shows how abruptly the Japanese islands rise out of the ocean. Other coastal areas in the region have much more gradual slopes. The earthquake on March 11th was the most powerful known to hit Japan, and the tsunami it created had the necessary ingredients to make it such a deadly and destructive force. "80 miles east of Japan, a 9.0 magnitude earthquake rocks the ocean floor. This disturbance causes a transfer of energy from the seafloor to the ocean, generating a series of ocean waves, known as a tsunami. In about 20 minutes, waves strike the Japanese coastline. Other nations go on high alert because the tsunami will propagate or spread throughout the Pacific Ocean. As the tsunami radiates outward from Japan, it encounters a variety of ocean features, such as ridges and underwater volcanoes, which guide the tsunami and create a complex pattern of scattering and reflective waves. In 8 hours, the waves reach the Hawaiian Islands, and in 9.5 hours, they hit the west coast of the United States. In 16 hours, the tsunami reaches the Indian Ocean and New Zealand, and by 22 hours, the entire Pacific Ocean had been affected. The impact of a tsunami can be highly variable because of the complicated interactions with ocean features and coastline elements. Wave height and speed will differ from place to place. Since tsunamis can be hundreds of miles long and travel thousands of miles away from where they originated, they are considered a worldwide threat when they form. These are the sounds of a tsunami warning. They alert residents that a killer wave is about to strike. These sirens, however, are just a small part of the sophisticated warning systems that played a role in Japan and in the US during the Pacific Ocean tsunami in March 2011. Most tsunamis are generated by an undersea earthquake. Fortunately, Japan has one of the most advanced earthquake early warning systems in the world. It detects tremors, calculates the epicenter, and sends out warnings from over 1,000 seismographs scattered throughout the country. The Japan Meteorological Agency issues the warnings and sends alerts to television and radio channels, the internet, and mobile phone networks. When the earthquake struck 80 miles offshore, warnings were generated in about 3 seconds. The tsunami warnings came 3 minutes later. These take longer because more complex calculations are involved and must factor in ocean data. Since the first tsunami wave struck the coastline within 20 minutes, the advanced warning provided some residents with crucial minutes to reach a safe area. While the earthquake sent powerful tsunami waves westward toward Japan, the tsunami also propagated east into the Pacific Ocean. Here, warnings are issued by the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, operated by NOAA in Hawaii. NOAA maintains a large network of buoys with ocean floor sensors that are strategically positioned in the earthquake-prone zones of the Pacific. This system collects vital ocean data for tsunami forecasting. On March 11th, only 25 minutes after the earthquake struck, the first buoy station measured the tsunami and relayed information to Hawaii. Scientists used this data to run models and issue forecasts and warnings to nations throughout the Pacific. From there, local emergency managers decided what actions were appropriate to take for public safety. The earthquake and resulting tsunami devastated the Japanese coastline, causing damage that will take years to repair. While we can't prevent these forces of nature from happening, our early warning systems can help us prepare for the dangers headed our way.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Well, it's marine weather time, and we're going to start out with today's sea ice edge. And as you can see, this is the time of year the breakup is fully underway, and we're seeing much of the ice beginning to break up there across the central and northern Bering Sea, surrounding all the various islands. The most important thing is that we're going to have more of an easterly to northeasterly flow over the region the next day or so. As a result, there still will be a west to southwest drift to the ice edge, though it is finally breaking up, and we are anticipating above normal temperatures over southwest Alaska, especially as we head through mid-May. So this will only further help along the breakup process. And as far as what we have for the marine forecast for the southeast for tomorrow, inner waterways, winds will be southeasterly at 25 knots, Ketchikan at the mouth there of Dixon Entrance, but northerly 20 to 25 knots as you go up through Lynn Canal, with waves anywhere from 5 to near 8 feet. Stronger winds off the coast there in the Gulf, southeast winds upwards of 25 to 30 knots, turning more toward the north and northeast there west of Yakutat, with waves running 5 to 7 feet. And then during the day on Friday, the inner waterways will see generally a southeasterly component to the wind at anywhere from 10 to as high as 25 knots there down toward Ketchikan. But then along the coastal areas, 25 knot southerly winds as low pressure lifts up through the Gulf of Alaska. That's going to create swells generally in the 8 to 10 foot range. Across south central areas for Thursday, generally a northwesterly component to the wind. Prince William Sound, waves running around 2 feet with 10 knots from the northwest. And Cook Inlet, with the exception of the mouth, you can see waves a couple of feet, but upwards to 5 feet at the mouth of Cook Inlet, with winds northwesterly at 20 knots. Also, same there just northeast of Kodiak. And then on Friday, we'll see the winds turning and developing more of an east to northeast component. Prince William Sound, northeast 10 knots, 2 foot waves, and along the length of Cook Inlet, we see waves generally running 2 or 3 feet, though around 6 feet, as we get out toward the mouth of Cook Inlet and just off of Kodiak Island and the Kenai. Across southwest Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island, winds are going to be turning more toward the east initially. Strongest winds 35 knots, 7-footers there north of Cold Bay, as well as off of False Pass, with some 10-footers possible. But then notice as included front works its way just to the west of the area, winds are going to be picking up out of the east anywhere from around 20 to upwards to 30 knots. On the Pacific side, we are looking at waves generally up around 10 feet. On the Bering side, 5 to 7 feet. And then as we go through the Aleutian chain, low pressure is going to be tracking up in the vicinity of Adak and Atka, and you'll see winds ahead of that from the south and southeast, anywhere from 20 to as high as 30 and 40 knots. Highest waves will be north of the Aleutians and the Bering side. And on the backside, winds go to the north at 25 to 30 knots with 10-footers around Kiska. And then on Friday, as that low pressure drifts eastward, you'll see winds ahead of it out of the east around 15 knots through the eastern Aleutians, with waves 8 to 10 feet on the Pacific side, 5 to 7 feet on the Bering side. And then on the north side of the low, winds turn to the north at 20 to 25 knots, with waves generally up near 10 feet, including Adak back through Kiska and Shimia. And then across what remains of the ice there, western areas, easterly flow, open waters, 35-knot gales, 14-footers at St. Paul and St. George. And that's why the ice will be drifting westward here the next couple of days. And then going into Friday, the winds turn a little more north and northeasterly, around 20 to 25 knots, with waves running around 9 feet, open waters south of St. Matthew and also St. Paul and St. George. Along the Arctic coast, look for east to northeast winds around 10 knots, and also easterly winds upwards to 25 knots there from Cape Lisburne up to off of Wainwright. And then as we go through Friday, still easterly winds there along the Arctic coast upwards of 15 to 25 knots. And as we go down through the Seward Peninsula, we are looking for winds out of the northeast. Still could be up around 30 knots at Cape Lisburne, but then turning a little more northerly as we get down towards St. Lawrence, and the ice continuing to break up. On the weather map, low pressure will be lifting northward up through into the Gulf of Alaska, affecting the southeast. High pressure anchored over the Arctic Ocean and affecting the Arctic coastline with some fog. And then as that low pressure lifts up through the Aleutians, that's going to keep the precipitation going there with the high north of the Arctic coast. And that does it for our show today. Thank you for watching.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal, pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.